Sex work, female empowerment, and horror. Sounds like a great combo to me. Cam, horror movie review. Hey Twisted people, it's your Twisted Girl next door here, and today I am reviewing the Netflix original film Cam, which deals with a sex worker, cam model, who basically wakes up one day to find out that someone who looks exactly like her has somehow taken over her account and is doing really crazy things on it, along with basically stealing her life. Overall, Cam is a film that definitely, the thing that stands out to me about it is that it subverts that unspoken, now in the last couple of years, spoken horror rule that if you have sex in a horror movie, you will die. More so if you are a woman, and more so you will die brutally if you are a woman, especially a sexual woman in a horror film. And what this movie does is subvert that trope and making it so that the sexualized women, or particular the heroine of this film, is the hero and not necessarily a prop to be dead girl number 5. The first pro was that the characters were believable and not obnoxious. I mean, there were some characters that were, you were meant to not like them, just like there were characters that you were meant to relate to, and it all translated well. The characters weren't all tragic figures, because sometimes that's, the narrative that we see in mainstream media when it comes to sex workers and things of that nature, like they're doing it because they're down on their luck, or they're on some type of drugs, or, like they have no choice, and things of that nature. And what this film did was that it made it so that these workers could be anybody. And I think what was done with this main character was that you related to her. She did a fine job, the actress, in making it so that she was a heroine. She was vulnerable at times, she was layered, but she was also very tough, which was very cool. The second pro is that the film throws out the male gaze. And you know what I'm talking about when I say the male gaze, where it seems like, and I've talked about this before, where certain films, no matter what the plot line, the way the shots are made, what's focused on, who gets to talk, and the way they talk, and the way they're used, it's very much the default. In a lot of our mainstream, culture, particularly horror movies, come from the male gaze, where it's the male audience member, the male viewer that's taken into account. And usually like the heterosexual male viewer of, they want to see some boob shots. The women are naked, not because it's practical, but because they need a boob shot. And the guy is always fully clothed, even if both of them are having sex, things of that nature. And in this case, it could have fallen into, as this being about sex workers, a way to be gratuitous and exploitative and, really over-sexualizing the women and making it so that it was just kind of like softcore porn sort of a deal with no narrative. And the film did a good job of not falling into that trope, where if there was nakedness, if there was sexual scenes and whatnot, it made sense for the plot line. And if not, if anything, it came off as more strategic and part of their job, as opposed to let's cut away and just have something because guys are watching. The biggest pro of this film was the political themes. I know, you're like, oh my gosh, this is a horror movie, why is the political theme the biggest pro? Because I think one of the great things about horror, as I've said before, is that it can be a very progressive genre, and it can be a way of showcasing real world issues in a fantastical way with a cool plot line. And this film definitely did that, in the sense of, while our heroine is going through trying to figure out who's taken over her account, what is this entity that looks exactly like her that's on her channel, and things of that nature, there's very real world problems that cam models and sex workers deal with, such as not being considered legitimate workers, being exploited, not being, respected by police officers, not being respected by their family, being shamed for the kind of work that they do. Because, right now we live in a society, a time where it's very dangerous for sex workers. There's a lot of laws that have made it so that they can't collect their money in a safe way, where sex workers are criminalized, and it leaves that industry vulnerable to sex trafficking, to violence and abuse of the workers there, of the sex workers. And so I think what this film did, without bludgeoning us over the head with it, was interweave those themes of exploitation, of, the heroine in this film, really fighting for her livelihood, not just her life, but her livelihood. One flaw is that there was really no actual explanation once you reach the climax, once you find out what's actually happening. On one hand, I agree with that. On the other hand, I'm like, I'm a little dissatisfied in that sense, because I do feel like once the reveal happens, it's like, okay, are we not going to explore like how, what, where, and why that is occurring? The other flaw, and this didn't really bother me, if not just more so I noticed it, I wouldn't really categorize this as straight out horror. And I know we're living in a time where not categorizing something as horror is controversial sometimes, because we're there's the debate around what is horror, and not everything, just because it's not scary to you doesn't mean it's not scary to other people. But that's not even what I'm talking about. I just don't think the elements of this film made it so I would call it a straight out horror. I would call it more of a thriller drama with some horror elements to it. I'm just saying that if you're looking for something that's straight out gore, jump scares, and things of that nature, this is not that film. It's not that kind of film. Not a bad thing, but if you were straight out going for horror, you would probably consider this a flaw. So if you're looking for jump scares, probably not the movie for you. Yes, Cam is definitely stab approved. Like I said, it has some cool elements in it. It's a nice, refreshing take on the idea that the sexualized woman has to die in the horror films, or she's just there for the male gaze. And I think I really appreciated that. And not just appreciated like, oh, you should watch this film because it has, it's on a soapbox, but it's actually very entertaining. There are some cool elements in it, and I enjoyed it, and I think you will too. So, did you watch Cam? Do you agree with my assessment? Do you have some other ideas for films with similar elements in it that you think I should watch? Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. And also, be sure to subscribe so that you are the first to know when I post my videos of all things horror. Thanks for watching. Let's get creepy together.